My sister slapped my baby at Christmas dinner and told me I was overreacting, like assaulting an infant was just festive fun. Everyone just sat there. But then, my lawyer wife stood up and taught her a lesson she'll never forget. She never came back. Guys, I've been lurking on this sub for years, but never thought I'd have a story worth posting. Boy, was I wrong. What you're about to read is probably the most satisfying revenge story you'll hear this year, and it's 100% true. I've got documentation for everything because my wife is a lawyer and she doesn't mess around. This is going to be long, like really long. But trust me, it's worth the read. Grab some popcorn because this journey goes from family drama to complete life destruction. And the ending is chef's kiss perfect. I, 31 male, work as a senior project manager for a major construction company in Austin, pulling in about $185,000 managing commercial builds. My wife, Jessica, 29 female, is a corporate lawyer at one of those big downtown firms, making around $230,000. We've been together since college, married for 4 years, and we had our son Mason last year. We're doing pretty well. Nice house in Cedar Park, both cars paid off, healthy savings account. Not rich, but definitely comfortable. We both come from middle-class families and worked our tails off to get where we are. No trust funds, no handouts, just good old-fashioned grinding through college and building careers. Now, my sister Brittany, 33 female, is a completely different story. Ever since high school, she's been obsessed with getting rich without actually working for it. She went through this whole cycle of dream careers. Tried to be an actress, lasted 6 months, then a model, wasn't pretty enough, then a wellness coach, whatever that means, and finally landed on being a lifestyle influencer. She's got about 150,000 followers on Instagram and makes her living pushing overpriced skincare products and fitness supplements to desperate housewives. The whole live your best life crowd, you know? Posting pictures of her morning routine with $200 face creams and $80 vitamins that probably cost $2 to manufacture. But here's the thing about Brittany that'll become important later. She's always been the golden child. My parents, mom's a retired elementary school teacher, dad owns a small heating and air business, have been bankrolling her lifestyle for years. They paid for her fancy apartment in downtown Austin, her car payments, even her cosmetic surgery when she decided she needed bigger lips for her brand. Meanwhile, I worked my way through college and grad school, took out student loans, worked construction jobs in the summer to pay rent, never asked them for a dime after I turned 18. But somehow I'm still the ungrateful one when I don't worship the ground princess Brittany walks on. The family dynamic has always been. Brittany creates drama, everyone else adapts to manage her emotions. She throws a fit about something, family dinner gets canceled, she doesn't like her birthday gift, time for a family meeting about being more thoughtful. Or she gets her feelings hurt. Suddenly it's everyone else's job to make her feel better. I'd been putting up with this garbage for decades, but it never really affected me directly since I moved out at 18 and only saw them on holidays. Jessica always thought my family was weird, but she's polite and never said anything. We just did our thing and kept interactions minimal. This Christmas was supposed to be different. It was Mason's first Christmas, and Jessica and I were actually excited to share that with my parents. We'd even bought them a really nice gift, paid off the remaining $12,000 on Dad's business loan as a surprise. We were feeling generous and wanted to include them in this special time. That good feeling lasted about 30 seconds after Brittany showed up. Brittany rolled up to my parents' house in a brand new BMW X5. Lease, obviously, but she acts like she owns it. But she wasn't alone. She had this sketchy photographer guy with her, carrying enough camera equipment to film a movie. Turns out she'd landed some big sponsorship deal with this luxury baby products company and needed to film authentic family content for her Christmas campaign. The company was paying her $15,000 for this one post. 15 grand to pretend she cares about family while hawking overpriced baby carriers to her followers. The photographer, this hipster guy, with the man bun and expensive glasses, immediately started setting up ring lights and professional cameras all over my parents' dining room. He was moving furniture around, adjusting lighting, setting up different angles. It looked like a film set, not a family dinner. Mom was falling all over herself trying to help, asking what else they needed, and apologizing that the house wasn't nice enough for professional filming. Dad just sat in his recliner pretending this wasn't completely insane, scrolling through his phone like he always does when Brittany creates chaos. Here's what really got to me, though. Brittany didn't even acknowledge Jessica and me when we walked in. She was too busy directing the photographer on the lighting situation and complaining that the house wasn't aesthetic enough for her brand image. We're standing there holding Mason and our overnight bags, and she completely ignores us. When she finally noticed us, after spending 10 minutes rearranging Mom's Christmas decorations, her first words weren't, "Hey, how are you?" or "Congratulations on the baby," or even just, "Hello." No, she immediately zeroed in on Mason and said, "Oh, perfect. Having a real baby in the shots will make this so much more authentic. The brand is going to absolutely love this angle. Not, 'I'm excited to meet my nephew,' or 'he's so cute,' or any normal human reaction to seeing a baby. Just calculating how she could use my 8-month-old son as a prop for her sponsored content. Like he was an accessory she could borrow to make her post more believable." Jessica and I exchanged one of those looks that married couples share when they're both thinking the same thing. As a lawyer who deals with manipulative people all day, she's got a pretty well-developed nonsense detector, and it was going off hard. But we decided to be polite and see how things went. That was our first mistake. The dinner turned into a 2-hour photo shoot with some food thrown in as decoration. Brittany had the photographer filming her giving these completely fake heartfelt speeches about family traditions and the importance of coming together for the holidays. She kept directing everyone on where to sit, how to hold their forks, when to laugh, even how to chew their food, so it looked more natural on camera. She'd literally written out talking points beforehand about gratitude and family bonds and creating memories. It was like being unpaid extras in her personal commercial, except we didn't know we'd signed up to be in a commercial. Mason was being really good considering the circumstances. He's usually pretty chill, takes after his old man in that department, but all the bright lights and camera equipment were clearly bothering him. You could see him getting overstimulated, looking around at all the unfamiliar stuff with that slightly confused expression babies get when their routine gets disrupted. About halfway through this circus, he started getting fussy. Not screaming or anything dramatic, just making those little whimpering sounds that mean he's about to lose it. Any parent knows that sound. It's the warning signal that you need to address the situation before it escalates. I reached for him to take him out of his high chair, but Brittany literally held up her hand like a stop sign. Don't. We're getting such good natural audio right now. This is exactly the kind of authentic family chaos that resonates with my audience demographics. Let that sink in for a minute. My 8-month-old son's distress was good content for her business. His discomfort was something she wanted to capture and monetize. Jessica, being the protective mother she is, said firmly, "He needs a break. We're going to take him upstairs for a few minutes so he can calm down." But Brittany went full influencer diva mode. "Are you kidding me right now? Do you have any idea how much this campaign is worth to my brand? The lighting is absolutely perfect, and the photographer is only available today. The baby is fine. Kids cry. It's literally what they do. This is authentic content." Mom immediately jumped in supporting Brittany, saying we were being overprotective first-time parents, and that we needed to be more flexible with family activities. She actually used the phrase helicopter parenting to describe us wanting to comfort our crying baby. Dad just kept eating his mashed potatoes and pretending nothing was happening, which was his standard response to any family conflict involving Brittany. That's when Mason went from fussing to full meltdown mode. Red-faced, screaming, the works. He was completely overwhelmed and just needed someone to pick him up and comfort him. Any decent human being would have stopped everything to help calm down a crying baby. But not Brittany. She kept filming, talking to her camera about the beautiful chaos of real family life and how authentic moments like this show what the holidays are really about. She actually told the photographer, "Make sure you're getting this reaction. Brands absolutely love genuine family dynamics like this." She was narrating my son's distress like it was entertainment. I was about to get up and take Mason myself. Consequences be damned. When it happened, Brittany leaned across the table and smacked Mason right across the face. Hard. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot, and Mason went dead silent for a second before letting out a wail I'd never heard before. His little cheek was bright red, with the outline of her hand clearly visible. The room went completely quiet except for Mason's crying. Mom sat there with her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Dad looked like someone had slapped him too. The photographer kept filming like nothing had happened. But Jessica went into full lawyer mode. She stood up slowly, and even though she's only 5 feet 4 inches, she suddenly seemed 10 feet tall. Her voice was ice cold when she said, "Turn off that camera. Right now." The photographer looked at Brittany, who nodded frantically. The red recording light disappeared. Then Jessica walked over and gently took Mason from his high chair, checking his face and whispering to him. He calmed down almost immediately in her arms, just sniffling against her shoulder with these little hiccuping sobs that broke my heart. Jessica looked at Brittany and said in that same deadly calm voice, "You just assaulted my infant son. On camera." I hope that content was worth it because you're about to find out what happens when you mess with a lawyer's family. The next few minutes were a complete blur. Brittany started backtracking immediately, saying she was just trying to redirect his attention, and everyone was totally overreacting. She kept insisting she barely touched him. Mom tried damage control, suggesting we all calm down and talk this through like adults. She actually said maybe we should come back to this when emotions aren't running so high. But Jessica wasn't having any of it. She handed Mason to me and started taking pictures of the red mark on his face with her phone, documenting everything from multiple angles. Then she turned to the photographer. I need a copy of everything you filmed today. All of it. The guy looked confused and said he had to check with Brittany first. Wrong answer. No, Jessica said, pulling out her business card. You just filmed the assault of a minor. That footage is evidence in a potential criminal case. You can voluntarily provide it now, or I can have police here with a warrant in 2 hours. Choose wisely. I've seen Jessica at work before, but watching her go full legal attack mode to protect our family was something else entirely. The photographer practically wet himself, fumbling with his equipment, clearly not expecting his hipster photography gig to involve potential felony charges. Meanwhile, Brittany was having a complete meltdown. It wasn't even that hard, and he's just a baby. He won't even remember this. And you're totally ruining my career over nothing. Notice that? Not once did she apologize or show concern for Mason. It was all about how this affected her brand, her income, her reputation. Then, she said something that made my blood boil. Do you people have any idea how much money this campaign is worth? I need this content to pay my bills. My rent is due next week, and I've got car payments. You're being completely selfish right now. Selfish. For protecting my son from being slapped. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just poor judgment under stress. This was who Brittany really was. Someone so entitled she saw my child as nothing more than a prop for her financial gain. We're leaving, I announced, and we won't be coming back until Brittany gets serious help. Dad asked us not to blow this out of proportion. Mom started crying, saying I was tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. She called child abuse a misunderstanding. As we walked out, I could hear Brittany screaming at the photographer for ruining everything and demanding he delete all footage. She was more worried about her content than committing a crime. The drive home was mostly quiet. Jessica was on her phone the entire time, making calls and taking notes. I'm calling our pediatrician tomorrow to document the injury, she told me, then filing a police report. After that, I'm making inquiries about this sponsorship deal. What do you mean? Think about it, she said. She filmed herself slapping a baby and planned to use that footage in a sponsored post for a baby products company. They're paying her to create content that includes child assault. They won't be happy. I started to see where she was going. Brittany's entire livelihood depended on her social media image and brand partnerships. How much trouble could she be in? I asked. Jessica smiled coldly. Criminal charges, civil liability, contract violations, defamation issues. It could be completely career-ending if we handle this right. For the first time since leaving my parents' house, I smiled. The next morning, Jessica was up at 6 a.m. making phone calls and taking detailed notes. Seeing her apply those methodical lawyer skills to protect our family was incredible to watch. First stop, our pediatrician's office. Jessica had called ahead, so when we arrived with Mason, the doctor was ready with camera and examination forms. She documented the fading mark, took precise measurements and photographs, and provided a detailed written statement about the injury being consistent with being struck by an adult hand. This is absolutely child abuse, our doctor said. The fact that it was done deliberately to stop normal infant behavior makes it even more concerning. You're doing exactly the right thing. Next stop, the police station. The detective who took our report, a guy with kids of his own, was genuinely angry when he heard the story. Doesn't matter if it's family, he said firmly. Assault is assault, and filming it while creating commercial content makes this easy to prosecute. The photographer had already turned over all footage without needing a warrant. Jessica's intimidation tactics worked perfectly. The video clearly showed everything. We're filing charges for injury to a child, the detective explained. Third-degree felony in Texas. She's looking at 2 to 10 years if convicted. But the real fun was just getting started. Jessica had researched the company sponsoring Brittany's Christmas campaign, some luxury baby brand called Pure Beginnings that marketed itself as devoted to protecting children. Their website was full of content about child safety and creating positive environments. I called their corporate offices this morning, Jessica told me. Spoke with their head of marketing and legal department. Sent them the police report and video screenshots. And They're terminating her contract immediately and demanding she return the advance. She's not getting the $15,000 for the campaign, plus she owes back the $5,000 advance within 30 days, or they're taking legal action. But Jessica wasn't done. She'd researched all of Britney's sponsorship deals and business relationships. Turns out my sister had built her entire brand around being family-friendly, promoting baby products, family vacations, parenting apps, children's clothing. I'm sending the video footage and police report to every single company she has a sponsorship deal with, Jessica explained, showing me her spreadsheet tracking all of Britney's business relationships. Over the next few days, it was like watching dominoes fall. One by one, Britney's sponsors dropped her. Several put out public statements distancing themselves and expressing commitment to child safety. Her supplement sponsor sent a cease and desist letter. The baby carrier company donated her payment to child abuse prevention charity. Her biggest sponsor, the luxury skincare brand paying her $3,000 monthly, didn't just drop her, they sued for damages. Within 1 week, Britney had gone from making $8,000 monthly from sponsorships to making zero. Actually less than zero, since she now owed money to several companies for contract violations. Her entire income stream had evaporated overnight. While Jessica was systematically destroying Britney's income sources, my family was having a complete meltdown. Mom called first, sobbing hysterically about how I was ruining Britney's life over nothing and begging me to make this stop before it goes too far. She kept saying things like, "She didn't mean to hurt him," and "You're being vindictive and cruel." I let her talk for a few minutes, then said calmly, "Mom, she slapped my 8-month-old son, hard enough to leave a mark, while filming sponsored content. If you think that's nothing, then I honestly don't know what to tell you. But she's your sister. Family is supposed to forgive each other and work things out. Family is also supposed to protect each other, especially children. Where was that energy when she was hurting Mason?" She didn't have an answer for that. Dad called next, trying to take a more practical approach. He offered to pay for anger management classes for Britney and suggested we could work something out privately without involving the police or her business relationships. "It's too late for that, Dad. She committed a felony. On camera. There's no working this out quietly. You're really going to send your own sister to prison over this?" I didn't send her anywhere. She sent herself there when she decided hitting babies was acceptable behavior. But the calls from Britney herself were something else entirely. The first few were angry, screaming about how I was destroying her life and ruining her career over one tiny mistake. She actually said I was being overdramatic and that Mason was totally fine. When I pointed out that she'd committed a crime and violated her business contracts, she completely lost it. "You don't understand anything. I need this money. My rent is $2,800 a month, and my car payment is $650, and I've got credit cards maxed out at like $40,000. If I lose these sponsors, I'll literally be homeless." And there it was. The truth about Britney's fabulous influencer lifestyle. She was living paycheck to paycheck, spending every dollar she made trying to maintain an image of success. The BMW, the fancy apartment, the designer clothes, all of it was financed by debt and sponsorship money that could disappear at any moment. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you slapped a baby," I said, and hung up. The next week brought even more consequences. Britney's follower count started dropping as word spread about the incident. Some smaller influencer drama accounts picked up the story, and suddenly Britney abuse was trending on Twitter. Her comment sections filled up with people calling her out and demanding accountability. She tried to control the narrative by posting a long apology video, but it was all standard influencer damage control. Lots of talk about how sorry she was for the misunderstanding and how she was learning and growing from the experience. No real accountability. No acknowledgement of the actual harm she'd caused. Just empty buzzwords designed to save her career. It backfired spectacularly. The comments were absolutely brutal, and several child advocacy groups started using her case as an example of how social media culture can lead to child exploitation and abuse. Then, Jessica discovered something that made everything even worse for Britney. "I've been going through her tax filings," she said one evening, showing me a stack of papers she'd somehow obtained. "She's been committing fraud for years." Turns out Britney had been lying to the IRS about her income and expenses consistently. She'd been writing off personal purchases as business expenses, underreporting her sponsorship income, and claiming fake deductions for things that didn't exist. The kind of stuff that gets you audited and potentially charged with tax evasion. "I'm sending all of this documentation to the IRS, Jessica said, along with evidence of her actual income from the sponsorship deals I've been tracking. She's looking at owing back taxes, penalties, and interest going back at least 3 years. Probably around 50,000 total. I whistled low. Between losing all her income, owing money to her former sponsors, and now facing a massive tax bill, Brittany was completely and utterly financially ruined. But we still weren't done yet. About 6 weeks after Christmas, the criminal case went to court. Brittany had hired some bargain basement lawyer who clearly wasn't prepared for the level of evidence Jessica had assembled. The case was overwhelming in our favor. The video showed everything clearly. Brittany striking Mason, his immediate reaction, the aftermath. Our pediatrician testified about the injury and its consistency with deliberate assault. The detective walked through the investigation and evidence collection. Jessica had even subpoenaed Brittany's phone records, which showed her texting friends about how annoying it was that Mason was ruining her content creation process. The prosecutor offered Brittany a plea deal. Plead guilty to injury to a child, get 2 years probation, complete anger management and parenting classes, and pay restitution for Mason's medical expenses and our legal costs. Her bargain lawyer strongly advised her to take the deal. It was generous considering the evidence and would keep her out of prison. But Brittany, being the entitled narcissist she'd always been, refused. She actually told the judge that she was the real victim here, that her family had turned against her and destroyed her livelihood over one moment of frustration with a crying baby. She claimed she'd been under extreme stress from the filming and that slapping Mason was just an instinctive reaction to stop disruptive behavior. She said the real abuse was how we'd manipulated the legal system to ruin her life over nothing. The judge was not impressed at all. When the jury came back with a guilty verdict after less than 2 hours of deliberation, he sentenced her to 3 years in state prison, plus 5 years probation after release, mandatory anger management, and restitution payments. 3 years in prison. For slapping my baby, because he was interfering with her Instagram content. But that was just the beginning of Brittany's legal problems. The IRS audit hit her 2 weeks after sentencing. Turns out she owed $52,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest going back 4 years. Since she had no legitimate income and no assets, everything was leased or financed, they started garnishing any money she might make in the future and put liens on her credit report. The lawsuit from the skincare company went to trial next. They won a $30,000 judgment against her for breach of contract and damage to their brand reputation. Another lien, another debt she couldn't possibly pay. Her landlord evicted her for non-payment of rent. She'd been counting on the sponsorship money that never came. The BMW got repossessed. Her credit cards got canceled for non-payment. By the time she reported to prison, Brittany had lost literally everything she owned. But here's the thing. I felt absolutely zero sympathy for her. Every time I looked at Mason crawling around our living room, babbling happily and hitting his developmental milestones, I remembered that moment when she prioritized her sponsored content over his well-being. Every smile, every laugh, every dada and mama reminded me that she'd been willing to hurt him for money. Jessica and I started a college fund for Mason with some of the money we'd saved on legal fees. Having a lawyer wife definitely has its advantages. We also donated $10,000 to a child abuse prevention charity in his name. Life moved on normally. I got promoted to senior project manager, and we bought a bigger house in a better school district. Mason started walking and saying his first words. We had regular family dinners with Jessica's parents, who actually cared about being grandparents, and spoiled Mason rotten in all the best ways. And for 2.5 years, we heard absolutely nothing from my side of the family. Then Brittany got out of prison early for good behavior. The first call came from Mom on a Tuesday evening while I was helping Mason with his dinner. He was 3 now and getting pretty good with a fork, though he still needed help cutting his chicken nuggets. Mike, honey, we really need to talk. Brittany got out last week and things are really, really bad. I put down Mason's sippy cup and walked into the other room. What do you mean by bad? She has absolutely nowhere to go. No money, no job prospects, no apartment. Her credit is completely destroyed and she can't get approved for anything, not even a basic checking account. She's been staying with us, but your father and we just can't support her anymore financially. We used up all our retirement savings during the trial and we're barely making our own bills. That was news to me. I'd figured my parents would keep enabling Brittany even after everything that happened, but apparently even they had limits. What exactly are you asking me, Mom? She needs help, Mike, real help. She's your sister, and I know what she did was wrong, but she's paid her debt to society. She's learned her lesson, and she's trying to turn her life around. I almost laughed out loud. Has she? Has she actually apologized for what she did to Mason? Has she taken real responsibility for her actions? Long pause. Very long pause. I'll take that as a no. She's She's struggling with accepting what happened. The prison experience was really hard on her, and she's having trouble processing everything. But she's trying to get her life back together. She just needs support from her family. She had support from her family for 33 years, Mom. That support is how she got away with hurting people for years before she hurt my son. More silence. Then Mom started crying. Please, Mike, I'm literally begging you. She has nothing left. No one will hire her because of her criminal record. She can't get an apartment or a car loan or even a credit card. She's completely desperate. Desperate enough to apologize for hitting my child? I don't know. Maybe if she knew you were willing to help, she might be more open to. I hung up on her. The second call came from Dad 3 days later. His approach was more direct and honestly more concerning. Son, I need you to help your sister. She's talking about hurting herself. Your mother's worried sick that she might do something drastic. She needs professional help, Dad, not money or job connections. We can't afford professional help. The trial and everything that came after, it completely wiped us out financially. I had to take out a second mortgage on the house just to pay for her legal fees, and now we're struggling to make those payments. That was also news to me. My parents had risked their house and spent their retirement savings to defend someone who'd abused their grandchild. They'd chosen to support her instead of protecting Mason. That was your choice, Dad. You chose to support her instead of us, instead of your grandson. She's family, Mike. Family helps family, no matter what. Family also protects family, especially children. You seem to have forgotten that part. I hung up on him too. The third call came from Brittany herself about a week later. When I saw her name on my phone, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me, and I wanted to hear what she had to say for herself. Mike? Her voice was completely different. Small and shaky. Nothing like the confident influencer tone I remembered. Please don't hang up on me. I didn't say anything, just waited. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I desperately need help. I need a job, and no one will hire me because of my record. I was hoping maybe your company has something available, even just entry-level construction work or office filing or something. Are you serious right now, Brittany? I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm completely desperate. I'm staying at Mom and Dad's, but they can't afford to keep supporting me. I don't have anywhere else to go or anyone else to ask. Have you apologized to my son yet for what you did to him? Long pause. Really long pause. Mike, that's complicated. I've been through a lot these past few years, and I'm still processing everything that happened. It's not complicated at all, Brittany. You hit my child. Either you're sorry for doing it, or you're not. I'm sorry things went as far as they did. I'm sorry it caused so much drama and problems for everyone involved. That's not an apology. That's you being sorry you got caught and faced consequences. I don't know what you want me to say. I went to prison. I lost everything. Isn't that enough punishment? And there it was. Even after losing everything, even after spending almost 3 years behind bars, she still didn't get it. She still saw herself as the victim. She still thought the problem was that she got punished, not that she'd hurt a baby. No, Brittany, it's not enough, because you still don't understand what you did wrong. I hung up and blocked her number immediately. But the story doesn't end there. About a month after Brittany's pathetic phone call, I got an interesting email at work. It was from a guy who ran a popular podcast about influencer culture and social media scandals. He'd been following Brittany's case since the beginning and wanted to interview me about the whole situation for an upcoming episode. Normally, I would have said absolutely not. Jessica and I had tried to keep a low profile throughout everything. But something about his email caught my attention. He mentioned that Brittany had been trying to make a comeback on social media, positioning herself as a reformed ex-convict, sharing her journey of redemption and personal growth. I checked her Instagram account out of curiosity. Sure enough, she was back to posting regularly. The bio now read, Phoenix Rising, sharing my story of growth and second chances, authentic redemption journey. She was trying to monetize her criminal conviction. Her posts were all about learning from mistakes and growing through adversity and the transformative power of forgiveness. She'd gained about 20,000 new followers who were apparently interested in the whole redemption arc narrative. Several of her recent posts had comments from small brands asking about potential partnerships. She was literally trying to build a new influencer career around the story of how she went to prison for hitting my baby. She was turning child abuse into content. That's when I decided to do the podcast interview. The podcaster was incredibly thorough in his research. He'd done his homework and had documentation for everything. Screenshots of Brittany's old posts, court documents, police reports, even some of the video footage. The episode was called When Influencer Culture Goes Too Far, The Brittany Wilson Story. I told the complete story from start to finish. The Christmas dinner setup, the assault, the trial, the aftermath. I played audio recordings from some of the voicemails my family had left me, begging me to help her get back on her feet. I showed the stark contrast between her public redemption narrative and her private refusal to actually apologize for what she'd done. But the best part was when the podcaster played a clip from Britney's latest Instagram story, where she talked about how some people couldn't forgive her and move forward, and how holding grudges was unhealthy and prevented healing. So let me get this straight, the podcaster said. She hits your baby, goes to prison, loses everything, and now she's upset with you for holding a grudge? That's exactly right. In her mind, she's the victim here. She served her time in prison, so everyone should just automatically forgive and forget. But she's never actually apologized or taken real responsibility. She's just sorry she got caught and faced consequences. The podcast episode went absolutely viral. Within 24 hours, it had been downloaded over 800,000 times and was trending on Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. The Reddit post about it got 75,000 upvotes and made it to the front page of the site. The internet did what the internet does best when it smells injustice. They completely destroyed her. Her new Instagram followers started dropping rapidly as people shared clips from the podcast. Her comment sections filled up with people calling her out for trying to profit off child abuse. The small brands that had been interested in partnerships suddenly went completely silent. Nobody wanted to be associated with someone who was using their criminal conviction for child abuse as a marketing strategy. Within 2 weeks of the podcast release, Britney's follower count had dropped from 170,000 back down to about 30,000, and those remaining followers were mostly hate watchers, documenting her posts to mock them. But the real justice came about 3 weeks later. I was at work reviewing blueprints when Jessica called me, laughing so hard she could barely get words out. "You absolutely need to check Britney's Instagram right now," she said. "She just posted the most pathetic video I've ever seen in my life." I pulled up her account on my phone, and there it was. A 15-minute video of Britney crying and begging for forgiveness. Not just from me and Jessica, but from everyone. She was sitting in what looked like my parents' guest bedroom, makeup running down her face, talking about how sorry she was and how she finally understood what she'd done wrong. But here's the real kicker. She was asking for donations to a GoFundMe she'd set up for legal fees and therapy costs. She was literally trying to crowdfund her way out of the consequences of her actions, using her fake apology as a fundraising tool. The video had comments disabled, but people were sharing it everywhere with their own commentary. The general consensus was that this was just another attempt at manipulation and that she was only sorry because her comeback attempt had failed miserably. Within a week, the GoFundMe was shut down for violating their terms of service. Britney's Instagram account was suspended for harassment after she apparently started sending nasty direct messages to people who criticized her. Her TikTok account got banned too for similar behavior. She was completely deplatformed. No social media presence, no income stream, no way to rebuild any kind of influencer career. Her digital life was over. My parents called one final time about a month later. Dad sounded completely defeated and honestly older than his years. "She's moving to Michigan to live with your Aunt Linda," he said quietly. Linda offered her a job cleaning houses for $16 an hour. It's the only work she can find with her record. From making $8,000 a month as an influencer to scrubbing toilets for barely above minimum wage. If that's not poetic justice, I don't know what is. "How's Mom handling all this?" I asked. She's finally starting to see what Britney really is. The trial, the prison time, the failed comeback attempt, it's opened her eyes to things she didn't want to see before. She's been asking about Mason lately, wondering if maybe there's any way to rebuild things with you and Jessica. I thought about that for a minute. Mason was 3.5 now, talking in full sentences and starting to ask questions about why he didn't have grandparents like his friends at preschool did. Has she apologized yet? Has Britney ever actually said she's sorry for hitting Mason? Long pause. Number. She still hasn't. Then there's nothing to rebuild, Dad. When she's ready to take real responsibility for what she did, we can talk. Until then, my family is better off without all of you. I hung up and went to find Mason. He was in the living room with Jessica, building an elaborate tower out of blocks and explaining to her how structural engineering works. He'd been fascinated by my work lately. When he saw me, he ran over and hugged my legs tight. "Daddy, look what me and Mommy built. It's really, really tall." I picked him up and looked at his bright, happy face. No fear, no trauma, no memory of that Christmas 4 years ago. Just a healthy, loved little boy who was growing up in a home where his safety would never, ever be negotiable. That's all that really mattered. Brittany's in Michigan now, probably scrubbing someone else's bathroom and wondering how her fabulous influencer life went so completely wrong. My parents lost their retirement savings defending a child abuser and are finally realizing what they chose to prioritize over their grandson's well-being.